Welcome back to the Alts Podcast. I'm your host, Horacio Ruiz. We bring you industry leaders and creators to give their insights on the rapidly changing and exciting world of alternative assets. Opinions expressed on this podcast by the host and podcast guests are for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. Podcast hosts and guests may maintain positions in the offerings discussed in this podcast. The intro song, Fishing for Pets, is written and composed by Alan Goldshire from his latest release, Live at the Lakeview Lounge. Thanks for joining me on the podcast. Today, our guest is Cameron Hejazi, the founder of Cent, a social network for NFT artists. Cameron created Cent in 2017, allowing some of the biggest NFT artists in the world today to share their art and build a community. Cent also made headlines when Twitter founder Jack Dorsey used the site to mint his first tweet as an NFT that later sold for more than $2 million. Cameron talks about that event, his experience running an NFT marketplace on Cent that he had to shut down, and the current state of digital art and the artists involved. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Cameron. Cameron, thank you so much for being on the Alts Podcast today. Really excited to talk to you. You've been a builder in the NFT space for a while, or in terms of the community, the social network. So thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, really excited to be chatting with you.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we hit that record button, and we're talking about NFT collections and things like that. And so I see that you guys actually have like a collection, a curated collection of, like you put a spotlight on artists and they have their NFTs that people can collect. And I actually have started collecting those NFTs because I think that they look real cool. So I like what you guys do with artists and what you're building in the community.
Thank you.
I just want to throw that out there.
I appreciate that. And we do a lot with artists in the space. Are you referring to our doodles, our free to collect collection? Because that's something that we've been pushing out a little bit.
Yeah. I get those emails as a reminder, like, hey, we released this, and so you put a spotlight on an artist, and yeah, you just you click a button and you have an NFT.
Yeah. I'm excited to keep working with creators and kind of exploring that capacity. So much of the NFT space is heavily financialized, and that's cool and all. Like, it's cool to really be making money on primary sales, but we're really trying to experiment with what's possible when you make the primary free and then leave it up to the secondary if there's any commercial activity around it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, that secondary is a very interesting thing, right? Because everyone benefits, I guess. If you're selling for a profit, and then it's always good to get the artist out there, right? The artist is going to be benefiting in perpetuity. That's something I know that I've spoken to people. I've spoken to artists are very creators. Let me put it that way. Creators are very excited about that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on that point of reach, I think the Web2 analogy would be something like a creator doesn't want a paywall, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to have to hide their content behind a paywall because they want it to be spread as far and wide as possible. And I think there might be a similar analogy in Web3 where, maybe it's going to be to the creator's benefit to have as many holders of their work as possible. And that's kind of the experiment,
Yeah. So you've been in the space, you've been building in the space as far as Cent goes, I believe since about maybe 2018, 2019?
2017, yeah.
2017, okay. So you've been in the space for a while, and I've listened to a couple of your interviews from before, from 5 years ago, which seems like forever ago.
Right.
And the space has changed, huh? Like the things that you're talking about now, the things that you were talking about 5 years ago, now it's almost like they're given.
Yeah.
How have you seen that? How have you experienced that change in those 5 years?
Yeah. Oh, wow. What a crazy time it's been. I mean, 5 years ago, Web3 wasn't even a buzzword. Yeah. And the idea of Web3 social wasn't really, part of the mainstream lexicon. There were platforms like Steam, it was around back then, which I think is subsequently rebranded, but that was like a incentivized, blogging platform. And much more scammy alternatives, which I won't get into, but most of which relied on advertising and funneled that money to the creators on them. we started Cent with the initial vision that we could create a social network that take all the actions that users do that generate value for typically the platform and funnel that value back to the people who've created it. And so we had actions like following, subscribing, commenting, posting, like everything you would expect in a normal social network, but we'd wrap incentives around them. And so one of the easiest examples is our incentivized upvote system, where you would give money to a piece of content to upvote it. And then if someone came after you and gave money in a form of an upvote, you got a piece of that as a curator, right? And so you're giving, but you're also receiving. And so there's an act of curation happening there, and you get rewarded for it. And that was the field that we were experimenting in, wrapping money around these interactions. And between when we started in 2017 and around 2018, 2019, a change happened, and that was that NFTs were introduced through CryptoKitties and a variety of other early projects. But it was actually our community of people who were rallying around this idea of earning an income that pointed us in the direction of NFTs. They said, hey, look, we can sell our art using this new tool. And a lot of them talked about it on Cent. They would share the projects that they're working on, the collections that they were dropping. And that's how we really first caught wind of NFTs, was through the community. And so, still the sleeping giant, right? Like the NFTs were like the micro community was like buzzing, and, there's a lot of action happening on Cent. And this was before crypto Twitter really took off. This was before Discord was even like, a community tool. And then all of a sudden, the explosion happened in 2020, and things really started picking up. Nifty Gateway, Sales Volume, Foundation, all these other platforms, right? They really started to capitalize on the NFT Marketplace side of things. Oh, and OpenSea, obviously. And yeah, it was just beautiful to kind of see that concept get so validated in the market, right? Digital ownership. People are finally getting past the idea of, well, what is it that I'm actually owning, right? Yeah. We understand what ownership means in the physical world, and now we're finally embracing it in the digital. And so, digital ownership was, in essence, like our motivation, right? But we just didn't know how to capture it when we first started Cent. And we've obviously evolved, and like I've been in tune with what people want and what they want to pay for. And so, yeah, and now we're sort of deeply embedded in the NFT space.
Let's maybe fast forward a little bit. I mean, you had gained traction, right, over the years. And then if I can say, you guys definitely blew up when you started minting, when you were able to mint tweets, when you had this idea of minting the tweets.
Yeah.
Where did that idea come from?
Yeah. So that idea came from, so originally we actually wanted to add NFTs to our own social network, but we were just kind of like, man, this is like, it's such a microcosm, right? We can reach so many more people and show so many more people that they can all be NFT creators too, right? There doesn't have to be this high barrier to entry. Really, NFTs are a wrapper for your creative process. Whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're painting, whether you're writing your masterpiece, or whether you're making a tweet, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was like, okay, this is a great reduction. And we prototyped it in literally a month. In the month of November of 2020, November to December, we went from 0 to product live. And then it kind of, it's made its way around crypto Twitter. And eventually, one big name after another, until somehow it came across Jack Dorsey's timeline. And then, obviously that was sort of the apex. And there's arguably no more valuable of a tweet than the first tweet. And so it was really cool to see that progression happen over the course of 4 or 5 months, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, that tweet, right, was in a lot of ways when it came out, it made so much sense, and it still does. I mean, it's historic, right? And for the creator of that tweet to then create into an NFT and kind of almost like claim ownership, right? You're really claiming ownership now. Was awesome, and I think it sold for something like like $2 million or something like that. He ended up selling it for $2.8 million.
$2.9 million. Yeah.
It was huge, right? And then subsequently you had other people minting their tweets and making thousands of dollars as well.
We have the first hashtag. It's just like random moments in Twitter history that people dug up and placed bids on, and it's really fascinating to see.
Memes, obscure memes, things that I hadn't even seen, but that I was like, whoa, this actually was a really like popular meme, and so it was like almost like a time machine going back into some of these tweets. And that was a different time, right? Like you said, you're kind of riding that wave. And if I can fast forward on this thing, now you have Jack Dorsey's tweet, and the guy who bought it right now, he's trying to resell it, and nobody was willing to bid more than a couple $100 on it. And I was like, I would have, if I had known. I didn't even know about the bid, the auction. Like, I think it's worth a couple $100 at least, but I guess nobody else did. What does that say? I mean, not so much about, what does that say about where we've come as a space, regardless of the price, right? Like that, what is this worth? And does it even matter if it's, does the price even matter?
Yeah, I think, there's definitely been an evolution in terms of like buyers' mentality and what they look for and how they can maximize a return in a lot of cases. And I think for this type of auction, one reason why I think it was problematic from a price perspective is that I don't think that OpenSea is the right venue for this type of asset, right? You're talking about something that is ostensibly very high worth, and you're just putting it on a site where anyone can bid, and then there is no sort of premium version of OpenSea or a version of OpenSea that caters to high net worth individuals, right? Now, we do see a lot of high value transactions happening on OpenSea. We also got to keep in mind, okay, well, this is an asset that's, it's on Polygon, right? It's not even on Ethereum mainnet, and all the transactions would be happening on Polygon as well. And so that's not to try and defend the value of the asset, but I do think from a marketability perspective, the best thing that we had for Cent and for valuables when we had the tweet initially auctioned was that it was on its own dedicated page, and it was, most importantly, promoted by Jack when he was selling it, right? He tweeted it out that it was for sale. And I think that carries a lot of weight in these things. And so, do I think that the tweet is worth $280 or whatever the bid was? Yeah. I don't know. It's not my place to say, right? I do think in terms of the mentality of the space and trying to evolve, I do think that honestly, people are looking, like if you look at any collection that is really popular on OpenSea, well, any collection on OpenSea period, you'll see this asset or this metric known as floor price, right? People are always tracking the floor price of a given collection. And for tweets, there is incredible variability in the value of any given tweet. The floor price is effectively zero, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't think that we fit into the investor model of digital assets when it comes to things as ubiquitous as tweets. We've had tens of thousands of tweets, I think probably 50,000 at this point, tweets minted. And some of them are just people minting for personal pleasure, just so they can have their own collection. And some of them are indeed these very high value assets. And I think when you have that range, it just introduces different dynamics than you say like a 10,000 PFP collection.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of want to pair that or couple that with then you had valuables, right? Where you're the marketplace for the tweets. And I know you've spoken about this before, but I kind of want to see if you've, have a new take on it or a new perspective possibly in the, last couple of weeks or whatever, since you last spoke about it. But, you had a separate NFT marketplace and and I imagine that was very difficult. I imagine that setting something up like that, your own version of an OpenSea, right, had its own challenges, and you subsequently had to shut it down because you came out and said, there's rampant fraud in the space in this marketplace, and it was probably a tough decision, but you shut it down and you had to, cut that part of Cent off
Yeah.
Could you take me through that process? How difficult was it to reach that decision? And looking back on it, is that something you want to maybe revisit at some point in time?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a decision that we didn't take lightly. I think the important thing to keep in mind about that platform that we shut it off on was that that's primarily a community product, right? It's not just a marketplace. Beta.cent.co is a place where people come. It's the social network, right, that we've created. And so when people, like users of the platform, see things like fake Bored Apes, it's not just a financial decision. It's like affecting the culture of the site, the experience, and then of the community. And so for us, it was very clear out the gate, like when we started getting reports of this, that we had to do something, we had to take action. And fortunately, the volumes on those fake assets wasn't ridiculous, but people were very clearly trying to dupe people into thinking that legitimate Bored Apes were for sale, right? They were marketing them in price points in the thousands of dollars, and Bored Apes were a little bit cheaper back then. Yeah. That's crazy how much it changes, but it was very clear that nefarious activity was taking place. And so for us, the community has always been what has really carried that product. And we just acted in the best interest of the community. Now, I will say we do want to re-enable it, and we are working kind of behind the scenes to get it back up and running. And that involves not just executing on our own, but really partnering with other companies, other providers who can help us detect fraud and counterfeiting and IP theft. And so we don't have anything to announce on that yet, but we should in the coming months. And we're really excited to get that back up and running.
Can we talk a little bit about, like, what's interesting to me is I would have thought from the outside looking in maybe that you had kind of hitched your wagon at that point in time to a marketplace, to an NFT marketplace. But the reality is that you had built a community through Cent over the years, and that that's something that never went away. What was that kind of what was the impact of that marketplace, and did it have an impact on your community at all?
Yeah, I mean, people were definitely bummed that the monetization component was turned off. At the end of the day, though, we achieved what we wanted to achieve. We still allow users to mint content on the site, but by removing that marketplace component from our site, it ended up curbing a lot of the bad activity that we saw because they couldn't stick a price next to it directly. That didn't stop someone from, say, listing it on another platform, right? Like an OpenSea, right? But it just turns out that if we would make it a little bit harder for them to get to the point of listing a counterfeit asset, it ultimately, cuts it down enough where, okay, it's no longer an issue that's dominating the site, dominating the feeds, just a bunch of fake content.
Yeah. Let's talk. Can you talk about what Cent is? If someone, because we haven't really talked about the at the heart of it, and I jumped in, and it's almost it takes me back, man. It takes me back to like the early 2000s. When we were figuring out, like, exploring the internet and meeting different people and kind of just exploring different ideas. What is Cent, and how would you describe it to somebody that's looking to kind of check it out?
Yeah. So Cent is a community that of people who are really interested in this idea of making a creative income, and more than just that, we the company are providing tools that assist them in that, and our tools are always at this intersection of social media and ownership, right? And so if you look across our different products, our initial social network is very much in that camp. Even the valuables marketplace, it's really about bringing ownership wherever we are creating things, not just on our own platform, but elsewhere. And even with our latest product that's at app.bio, we're wanting to extend that even further and give people not just ownership of their content, but also of the audience that they build, and that stems from a lot of our observations about modern social media and how you have to leave things up to the algorithm a lot of times and hoping to get seen, and how we can do better in that regard.
that app.bio. So is that like your link in bio? Is that a part of your link in bio for Web3?
Yeah.
How is that different from, say, the current link in bios, like, Linktree and things like that? How is this Web3 component maybe different?
Yeah. So for us, really, the Linktree-esque features are really a Trojan horse, right? We have those, the list of links that you can customize. We have that as a convenience so that you can put something like this in your link in bio. But really, the meat of it is the subscription feature that lives on top, above the links when someone goes to your app.bio. And what that enables is a fan or an audience member to subscribe to you directly. And then when you have a message that you want to put out as a creator, you put it out and it blasts it to all the email addresses that are subscribed. And it's not just a normal email that will get lost in an inbox. It's actually a collectible digital asset. So they receive an email saying, you have a new update, come check it out. And then when they read it or experience it, watch it, whatever, they can collect it as an NFT into their wallet with no gas or anything. And we have the sophisticated architecture that handles that process, kind of makes it so that a non-crypto user doesn't need to think about all of these things, right? We set you up with a wallet, we pay the gas fees. You can still transfer the asset out if you're a pro to your MetaMask or whatever wallet you use, but it's really about, we call it Web 2.5, where we want to give people the Web3 benefits, but we also are one foot in the door of Web 2. And Web 2 contacts are email addresses. Web 3 is the ETH address. And we hope that by giving creators both of them, there's no sense of compromise,
The details of that. So if I'm a creator and let's say the things that I create are newsletters, right? So someone will receive an email and get my newsletter and get it as an NFT as well. Is that kind of?
Yeah. They have to open it and click collect on it though. It's not that they automatically receive it. They have to take that step of engagement and actually go to the page and click collect.
That's really cool. If someone, someone really enjoyed a newsletter of mine.
Well, the way we think about it is, there's a lot of ubiquitous Web 2 metrics like the like and the share or the retweet. And we think of this as a Web 3 native version of it, right? If there's something that you genuinely appreciate, why shouldn't you be able to hold on to it outside of the platform, right? And that's what collecting does, right? It gives you a copy in your wallet as part of your archive. And this is all memorabilia, right? You could have a fire newsletter that you drop that, changes the course of something in the NFT space. And like 30 years later, that's looked back upon as a relic. And, I'm one of 10 people that collected that and I cherish that. And that's the idea, right? We want to be able to make it so that our digital footprints aren't like, lost in Facebook's data centers or lost in any one company, and that really starts with us claiming ownership of it.
Yeah. Right now, that feature app.bio, you're accepting creators right now.
Yes.
But you're kind of looking. I don't want to say you're looking for certain creators, but it's not right now. It's not open to the public. What are you seeing right now? Like, who are you what artists or creators are you looking for at the moment? And how can somebody that's, interested, being a creator, be able to take part?
Yeah, honestly, we're very flexible. We don't have a predefined caricature of what type of creator, because we want to ultimately build something that serves any creator who is looking to grow an audience and build their distribution. And so for us, based on the tool that we have today, we're seeing newsletter writers, we're seeing digital artists, which the NFT space has quite a few of, really embracing the product. We're also really excited and talking with a handful of musicians. We're really excited at the potential of musicians releasing EPs through app.bio and getting their fans collecting their early works. But it's really a wide spectrum. And so if you or anyone listening is excited about the idea of connecting with your audience directly through not only reaching them directly by email, but having them collect your work and you potentially making money on secondaries of those assets, definitely reach out. We're very open to chatting with you.
Absolutely. A couple more questions, Cameron. I know we were talking a little bit about you seem really really relaxed today. We were talking a little bit before we got on air about the craziness that's happening right now with NFTs, and we've also mentioned Twitter, and Twitter can be crazy, and it's hard to separate fact from fiction. Somebody who's being comical or someone who's telling a true story, but on the feeds right now are people that bought at a certain price on certain projects, right? NFT projects, and now they're saying, and I laugh because I don't know why I'm laughing actually, but I don't think it's completely true. But they're talking about how they're financially ruined and they don't know what to do anymore. And I think some of those stories are true. I really have to believe that they are true. But then some people are just completely outlandish. And I say all that as somebody who's been in the space for a while. Like, where are we right now? I mean, has the market kind of went too far and it was just had to come back down, or have the motives behind it kind of changed and it's kind of a time to kind of reflect on what it is that people are consuming?
I'll say this. I think that for NFTs, they've only existed in a bull market, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think we've seen a proper crypto winter with NFTs. The last crypto winter was 2017 into 2018, and then, through those next several years. People do talk about these winters shortening as the space gets more supported, more mainstream. But I think that there's still a lot of very speculative capital in the markets, and I think that it will continue to have these pretty violent oscillations and winters. And so there's that aspect. And then there's also the macro aspect of nobody understanding what the heck is going on with the economy, with inflation, with people still looking to spend a lot of money, but also supply chain shortages and living in fear of a recession. And so I think that we're at a very interesting point in terms of the economy. And I'm not an economist. I can't predict when things will correct or how long they will be going down. But I do think that the NFT markets have yet to see a true kind of, financial reckoning or bear market. And that does concern me. It concerns me for a number of reasons, not just the people that are collecting these digital assets, but for the creators who rely on them for income, right? People have started to depend on NFTs as an income stream as creators. And that's what Cent has always been about, right? Reflecting that creative value back to you in financial form. And so I am genuinely concerned that in the event of a prolonged downturn where people aren't interested in buying NFTs or don't have the means to buy them, that it will, more so than investors, brutally affect creators. And that makes me concerned.
You've mentioned your creators multiple times on the podcast, right? Which, says something about what your belief is and kind of why you have your platform. Could you give me an idea of who those creators are? Like, are they, when we think of creators, I think of these big time artists, right? That have become extremely rich off of NFTs. Who's the backbone, right? Who's the heart and soul of your platform? What are those creators like?
Yeah, so it's a lot of digital artists. So Cent's origins, really, crypto art was our roots, right? And a lot of the crypto artists in the space that are now very big, like Coldy and Hackatow and all of these other ones, they've gone on to be very successful. A lot of them were early users of beta.cent.co. And, in full transparency, a lot of them spend their time on Discord now and crypto Twitter, and they're not active on Cent anymore. But that's really our core, right? It is the crypto art movement. And so these are the types of creators who I fear most because a lot of them, they've devoted themselves full time to crypto art. And if the market kind of turns on them, I'm concerned for their sort of economic well-being. That being said, the early artists, they made out quite well. Some of those really vintage, 2019 crypto artists have gone on to do really great things. So,
what's the future of Cent? And I guess, and if I compare that question with we talked about earlier about the marketplace, what is the future? And then if you compare that with what does your marketplace, maybe that new marketplace that maybe you're ready to launch at some point in time, what is that going to look like, and how will it be different from, I guess, the first edition?
Yeah. So we really want to create a system that isn't permissioned. We don't want to gatekeep minting of NFTs by something like KYC. That is a really easy way to minimize the problem, right? If you have your identity at stake, and that things can be tied back to you. But we really want to keep it open, because that is like the type of inclusive vibe that we want to build. And so ideally, the future isn't much different. It's just none of the bad, right? Yeah. And so we're talking with potential partners around, image fraud detection. There's been a lot of cases where, DeviantArt is a great example. Like, they're working on a protocol to detect all counterfeit images and flag them for DMCA and sort of, retroactively addressing counterfeit content post-mint. Ideally for us, we'd be able to do it pre-mint, right? Before something has ever been minted onto the blockchain through one of our services, we want to be able to flag it and say that this is something that doesn't belong here because you're clearly not the owner. Or if you are the owner, like, let's work to like verify that. Mm-hmm. And so that's the direction that we want to take. And then longer term, ideally, we want the solution to share the same benefits that NFTs have. Meaning, let's say that OpenSea does detect that something is counterfeit, right? What is the protocol for an OpenSea communicating with a Cent or another platform that this is a counterfeit asset, right? There is none right now, except through maybe like email channels. But shouldn't the same tools that power NFT interoperability be able to power communication like between these platforms? And so that's the space that we're interested in exploring further. If everything that a creator has can be moved between platforms, why can't the platforms themselves take advantage of that technology? And so that's what we're also researching in at the moment.
And that could lead us into a whole nother discussion, with the different platforms that are arising, and kind of, you're right. It can get a little bit confusing, right? Like, you have different blockchains that are a part of different platforms, and it can be a little bit difficult. But that's another conversation. Cameron, how can people like mostly get in touch with you or read or listen to what you're involved with, latest news and on what's up with Cent, what's up with you, Twitter, Instagram, where can they check you out?
Yeah, I'm big on Twitter, not big in the sense of I'm really into using Twitter, the product.
Yeah. Which makes sense, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So I'm C Hejazi, Hejazi. And so, reach out to me there, and then definitely follow Cent on Twitter. It's just at Cent. And if you want to check out our suite of products, just go to cent.co. It'll actually redirect you to our app.bio page, which just has all of the links, and then you can subscribe to us for those great NFT updates.
That's so great. Cameron, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Great site. If I could say, I would say that you guys are one of the OGs in this space. I mean, seriously.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
And so it was really nice talking to you, and thanks for giving us some insight.
For sure. Great talking with you as well.
Best of luck in the coming months, and I'm sure you guys are gonna keep building and doing awesome things.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Have a good night.
Hey, you too.
In our interview, Cameron's passion for the community he's built came through. His thoughts on the space shine a light on his role as a steward, allowing other creators to create and thrive. A big thanks to Cameron for joining me on the podcast. He's one of the great voices in the NFT space. And a big thanks to you for spending part of your day with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, let others know about it or leave a review or a comment. Until the next time, take care.